Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley. Welcome back to Steelers Almighty, the fastest growing Steelers channel on YouTube. Appreciate everybody being in here. Man, we have got a good show for you guys today. First off, the offensive line is the key, ladies and gentlemen. We've talked about it. Didn't look good the other night against Tampa Bay. However, it's still the key. We'll break down the reasons why. Next, TJ Watt got another big contract this offseason. A lot of chit chat about whether he's worth it or not. We're going to discuss whether TJ Watt is worth the money moving forward. Then we're going to dive in a little bit of rumor talk. Scary Terry trade. You know, there was reports that came out, rumored to come out, back and forth between the Steelers and the Commanders. We'll talk about what, if true, should the Steelers have accepted the trade. And then last but not least, top defense, top 5 defense. We're not settling, people. We are absolutely not settling for top 5 or higher. We've been on that. We're going to stay on that. And we're going to talk today on exactly why. So appreciate everybody being in here. As always, you can always find us on youtube.com/Steelers Almighty. If you prefer the audio version, you can find us anywhere that you get your podcast of this podcast and social media platforms. Make sure you subscribe, like, follow, all that good stuff at Steelers Almighty. Let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen. So the offensive line is the key to the season. I don't think there's many people out there that are talking like the offensive line isn't the key to what the Steelers are wanting to do. We want to run the ball, number one, and we have to be able to protect the quarterback. I mean, every team has to do that, but it's been in question for Pittsburgh. And the preseason didn't help. We haven't been able to run the football successfully with the first offensive line. For whatever reason you want to come up with, it just hasn't looked good. But there are things I think the Steelers can still be successful. Let's kind of break it down a little. First off, the tackles have to be dependable. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about that. Look, Broderick Jones, I was just bitterly hard on the man last season because of effort issues. And the preseason game against Tampa, more effort issues. And there's so many people that say, come on, Big B, you're being too hard. Give them a break. And I'm like, why do we have to give somebody a break for effort? If you're making a physical mistake and somebody beats you, we can talk about why, but we can't talk about effort. Like, there's no getting around whether somebody's giving effort or not. And too many times, Broderick quits on plays. Like, he wants to block for 2 seconds and that's it. Like, the play's almost, or the play should be over by now or be done. Like against Tampa Bay on the touchdown pass, Broderick Jones actually stops, turns around, and looks while he's engaged to see if the quarterback has thrown the football. I'm like, what? Huh? Where do you do that at? So it's effort, and for a lot of us out there, it is effort with Broderick Jones. You know. Now, I'm not saying his technique is great because it isn't. It's not great, but he can at least work on that part of it. Now, the guy is powerful and he's super athletic. You can't take that away from him. Don't want to take away from him because that's what he does really well. But the effort and the technique have to come along. And again, I'm willing to give him not necessarily a pass, but almost, okay, work on the technique because that can get better. With the effort, man, I don't know. It kind of is what it is. Doesn't have that mean streak to finish blocks, push somebody just right after the whistle blows. He doesn't seem to have that. He just wants to block enough and thinks that he's done. He has no, I guess, wherewithal on finishing blocks. And maybe that wasn't important to him. Maybe he didn't have to do that previously. He needs to do that in the National Football League. And I know he's super talented. There's no doubt that Broderick's ultimately or ultra talented. He is. But at what point do we have to start seeing that on a consistent basis? Because if you don't see it on a consistent basis, they start throwing the bust word around. Now, it's a little early to be saying that right now, but I'm just saying, at what point, how long is the leash before the Steelers say, you know what, we missed? At some point, and hopefully starting week 1, Broderick Jones turns this thing around, and he becomes an absolute monster. And if he does, good for that young man, because he's taken a lot of flack from a lot of people, yours truly, especially. But I don't think it's been unwarranted. I think it's been fair. Moving on. Troy Fautanu, the main thing with him, got to stay healthy. Got to stay healthy. And again, nobody blames people for being hurt, but I mean, best abilities, availability, you got to stay healthy. If he does, quite frankly, I don't even need to spend a lot of time on Troy Fautanu. If he's healthy, I think he's the best lineman we got. He's a technician. He's a master technician. He keeps his hands strong. He keeps guys in front of him with his athletic ability. I think he's the best lineman, and that's saying something considering Zach Frazier's on this line. I think Troy's the best lineman we got if he's healthy. If he does that, the right tackle position should be fine. It should be fine. You move on to Zach Frazier. Look, I've said this a couple of times. I think that was the worst game that I've seen, this preseason game. Worst game I've ever seen Zach Frazier play. I mean, he looked bad. Bad snaps, getting manhandled in the interior line. And now, don't get me wrong, Vita Vea does that to people, but it shouldn't happen to Zach Frazier. And a lot of it was technique. But either way, I think he's going to be fine. We just have to hope that a sophomore slump doesn't happen, because I've been screaming his praises in the offseason that a sophomore slump, it doesn't appear that he's the type of person that would run into that. Read his own press clippings, think, hey, man, I've arrived. This is easy. He doesn't appear to be that type of person. So hopefully that was just a blip on the radar, and we start to see the real Zach Frazier moving forward, because that was a bad game against Tampa, but that's okay. It happens. And again, it didn't count. That's the main thing with Zach Frazier. It didn't count. But what I want to see him be is to be the leader. I want to start seeing him holding guys accountable, on the offensive line. I'm not saying you have to get in people's face and stuff like that, but you can hold people accountable in the meeting room. You can hold people accountable when you come off the field and everybody's looking at the iPads and trying to find out exactly what happened, on this play, that play. Be the leader. Aaron Rodgers has talked about his leadership skills. Well, be the leader of the line. Take control. Take control and just continue to get better. And if he does that, I mean, he was top 5 last year. How high can Zach Frazier go? How high can he go? So now Mason McCormick, look, the technique is all over the place. It's still all over the place. So it's getting better, though. I'm not going to tell you that it's not getting better. It is getting better. The one thing, and I've always said this about McCormick, you just can't teach motor. You can't teach anybody's motor. And this guy's got one, a crazy motor. So if he can just harness that, and with some technique behind it, we got ourselves a good right tackle, or excuse me, a right guard. And I like his fight. I like his hustle. I like all of it. We just need to start seeing more fundamentals. I think he kind of gets hurt by offensive line coaching. We'll dive into that a little bit here in a second, but I think that's a little bit of it. But we need McCormick to be the guy. We need McCormick to step up and have a really good season this year. We just need that out of him. And then Isaac Seumalo. Look, there's a lot of people that say Isaac's done. There are a lot of people out there, a lot of Steeler fans that are saying, he's old, he's finished. And you might be right. You might be right. What I would say is Isaac was hurt last year. Remember, he missed the first 4 games. I don't think he was ever right all year. And I know he was hurt at the beginning of training camp this year, hasn't played in the preseason, but he's back to practicing. But what I would say as far as Isaac is concerned, if he can be healthy, then I think he gets back to what he was in 2023. Now, if he's not healthy, that's a problem. It's a problem for the Steelers. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at. We've heard some rumblings that the Steelers brought in Dalton Reisner, a backup guard that started a lot of football games in the National Football League. If the Steelers can sign him, I think they should. It makes sense. 29 years old, started over 80 football games, played last year, started 8 games, but he didn't come in until the middle of the year last year and came in and immediately started up in Minnesota. So he's got some experience, but Isaac Seumalo, if he's healthy, I think he's okay. But if he's not, it's a problem. It just is, people, because last year was not one of his better seasons, and he would tell you that. You know, opening up too much on his outside leg, just not having the power that he's used to playing with. I think partly injury, but I don't think he's lost it. I just think maybe the injuries have caught up with him. I hope not. I really hope not. And then let's talk about Pat Meyer, because you can never really have a conversation about the Steelers' offensive line and the offensive line play without talking about the offensive line coach. Look, Pat Meyer, for me, I don't like his technique. I don't like how he teaches pass sets and basically everybody trying to jump set people. You know, offensive guards not giving ground. You know, want to immediately get on defensive tackles. And I get that aspect of it. Because again, the Steelers, it was feast or famine. They led the league as far as pass sets allowing, more time when it was time for quarterbacks to throw the football. They led the league. But they also led the league in the least amount under 3 seconds quarterbacks pressured, which I know that it's contradictory, but they did. I mean, hold on. They had the most time to throw, but they also had the least amount of time to throw. It's insane to even talk about something like that, but it was true. It was true. And so it's like, okay, well, what's going on? Well, it's pass sets. If I jump set you as an offensive guard and I get on a D tackle, I got you. But if I jump set you and I miss, you're immediately around me and in the quarterback's face. And that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers were last year. It has to change. It has to change. Give yourselves a little bit of an opportunity. And that's my whole thing. Maybe you don't have the highest win rate, or maybe that's the case. But if you can cut down on the amount of time that, hey, under 2 seconds to throw the football, if the Steelers don't lead in that, well, then that's a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. And I think the Steelers you would hope they would take a look at that. Just give some ground. Give yourself an opportunity. But the feast or famine thing, to me, doesn't work. And it hasn't worked for the Steelers. And now you got a 41-year-old quarterback back there. You better do something a little bit different, to help. You got to do something different. So we'll see what happens. Is Pat Meyer the scapegoat, though? Is it his techniques? I think partly, yes. Or, and I guess that's a better question, do we think it's more, hey, maybe the guys just aren't as good? That's the one thing that Pittsburgh Steelers fans, we say quietly, like I'm saying quietly. Hey, we'll blame Pat Meyer, but maybe the guys just aren't that good. Something to think about. Something to think about. Let's go to the poll question, ladies and gentlemen. Poll question 1. How confident are you in Pat Meyer's ability to develop the offensive line into a top-tier unit? A, very confident. B, somewhat confident. C, neutral. Or D, not confident at all. And that would be the question, is like, who has he developed? He's in charge of developing Broderick Jones. How's that worked? Same thing, though, with Zach Frazier. I mean, you can't say no to Broderick. No, he hadn't developed him, but then turn around. Well, Zach Frazier, he was just good on his own. That can't be true. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's a mixed bag. I don't know. I'll be interested to see what you guys have to say. I think I probably know, but I'll ask anyway. Make sure you put a 1 in front of your answer so we know what poll question that you are answering. Let's move on, people. Look, TJ Watt, is he worth the money? Ooh, that is the dying question. He'll be 31 in October. Is he worth the money? So let's talk about it. First off, what is the money? 3 years, 123, $108 million guaranteed. $41 million a year. He's the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the National Football League. Okay. Now, the one thing about that is that we're seeing it a little bit in Dallas. Now, is it Dallas? Is that just Jerry Jones? Is the deal going to get done with Micah Parsons? Are teams going to start shying away from paying these pass rushers this absorbent amount of money when, quite frankly, they don't do, I mean, they can affect a football game, but they can be neutralized. Like teams can, and we've seen it with TJ when teams just say, you are not going to affect this game. We're going to put a tight end over there with the tackle. We're going to chip you. We are not going to let you beat us. We saw that last year several times early on in the season before TJ ended up getting hurt. We saw teams do that. We saw them just say, you're not going to affect this football game. So our team's going to start getting away from that. Now, here's the argument against TJ. No playoff wins. Okay? And 4 games, he's got 6 solo tackles, 2 assisted, and 1 sack and a fumble recovery. I mean, what? That's not good numbers. That is not good numbers. Now, again, I just mentioned that teams can take him away, and when he gets in the playoffs, teams are going to try to take you away. Well, there was last year, and the Ravens really didn't do that. The Ravens basically said, we're just going to block you. And if you make a play, you make a play. And now, granted, TJ was hurt. And for people that say that he's not, you're lying to yourself. Yes, he was absolutely hurt. But you know my motto. You know my motto. I understand if you're hurt, we're not going to get your best, but damn it, we shouldn't get your worst. No stats in the game. No stats. I mean, isn't that your worst? They don't chip you. They don't double team you. They don't triple team you. And so you get all this one-on-one blocking, and you have no stats in the football game. I got to believe that's your worst. There's your argument against TJ is that he doesn't affect winning in the playoffs, or at least he hasn't affected winning in the playoffs. I'm not sure that's fair, though, to be honest, to ask your edge rusher. For one, he doesn't control the offense. You know, he doesn't even control the defense. He tries to make as many plays as he can, but it's $41 million. And I would bet you for every Steeler fan out there, if he didn't get paid and say, you know what, we're going to keep your salary till the playoffs, and then you got to show up in the playoffs. Now, granted, that's not fair. I understand how it all works. But Steeler fans would be like, yeah, let's make him show up in the playoffs and see if he can do something. Then we'll be more than happy to give him the money. That's where the Steeler fans, myself included, we get a little sideways. It's like, man, this regular season and all this Mr. October stuff is fine, and we love it. Be Mr. December. Be Mr. January. That's where we need you to be that guy. You can't get worn down. Now, him getting worn down is a product of bad complimentary football from the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last couple of years, because when your offense can't do anything and you're on the field a lot, that's a problem. He also missed a playoff game a couple years ago in Buffalo, got hurt. Now, TJ's not, I mean, some people say he's injury prone. I wouldn't say he's injury prone. I think he's been hurt a few times, but it's football. Guys get hurt. It happens. It happens. I mean, he's missed 11 games in 8 years. That's not that many, ladies and gentlemen. And the majority of it was from one injury, which he ended up coming back from. Now, you look at him, I mean, the argument for the Steelers are 1-10 without him. So it's proven that they don't win football games when he isn't playing. That has been proven. So as much as we say he doesn't show up here or there, the Steelers don't show up when he isn't out there. So that's just a fact. You can't refute it. You can't deny it. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got 108 sacks in his first 8 years. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's going to go down as one of the better Pittsburgh Steelers, not the best. Not going to hear me say that, but one of the better Pittsburgh Steelers ever. Again, facts. But he's only had 2 seasons that he hasn't had double-digit sacks. That's including last year when he was basically hurt the last 5 games and couldn't perform at peak level. And he was in the discussion last year before the injury. He was the odds-on favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. It was like minus 250. The next guy was plus 900, which is crazy. I mean, he was winning that thing. And then he got injured and couldn't perform at his highest level. And some of you would say, myself included, at no level at all. Okay. Will the success continue? I mentioned earlier that he's 31 years old. Well, here's what I would say. He's the opposite of Steelers Almighty, of what we say about guys getting paid. We always say the year before contract, guys are outstanding. The year they get paid, they get fat and happy, and they let their foot off the gas. TJ Watt's the exact opposite, or at least in the past, he's been the exact opposite. Man got paid, set the sack record that year. So, I mean, that's all we can go by. It's all we can go by. Man got paid, sets the sack record. So maybe that'll be the same thing this year. I think he's pretty motivated. I think he understands that, this is his last big contract. I think he understands that. And it's time to get it done, especially on this defense. This better be a top 5 defense, by the way, but we'll talk about that later. But what do we think about TJ Watt? Is he worth the money? It's an interesting conversation. This is going to be an interesting poll question. Let's go to the poll. TJ Watt. What do you expect from TJ Watt as he approaches 31 years old? A, maintain a Hall of Fame trajectory and continue to dominate. B, remain effective, but will start to decline. C, he'll struggle with age and injuries. And D, Steelers need to draft his replacement in 2026. They may need to do that anyway, even if he's still dominant in 2026. That's 2 years from now. Or I guess next year. Yeah, I guess it is next year. Lord have mercy. They may need to do that anyway. Not sure Jack Sawyer's that guy yet. Yeah, I'm not sure, but we'll see. Either way, put a 2 in front of your answer so we know exactly what poll question you're answering. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the halftime. Again, I want to thank all of you out there for always tuning in, being lively in the chats, subscribing, members. We appreciate all of that stuff and how you guys always support the channel, man. We absolutely appreciate it. Remember, if you want to become a member and still support Steve Almighty, you know how to do that. You got to click on the link. 5 different levels. Again, we're streaming all the Steeler games this year. So for Hall of Fame members. So if you want to be a part of the live stream during games and the watch party, make sure that you guys sign up to be a member at the Hall of Fame level. We're also doing our all 22s throughout the season that we are going to have for our members. So at the Hall of Fame or at the All Pro level or higher. So make sure you guys are signed up. We appreciate you. Also, something else that we are coming out with, ladies and gentlemen, we're having a Survivor's Pick contest. Yes, a Survivor Pick contest. You're going to pick all Steeler games, and whoever, I think if you guys know how Survivor works, whoever we're playing, first week 1, you either pick the Steelers or you pick the Jets. If you pick the Steelers and the Steelers win, you keep moving. If you pick the Steelers and the Steelers lose, you are out. 0 to enter, by the way. The prize, $250 of Steelers Almighty merch. You'll be able to go pick whatever you want, up to $250 worth of merch in our merch store, which is SteelersAlmightyShop.com. So the tiebreakers to all of this are going to be the number of points scored, or the average number of points scored for the season, and then the average points scored against. So you'll pick the games. You also pick what the score is going to be and an average all up. There's a link in the description for you guys to go and sign up. Everything is computerized, so it's not me sitting there or producer sitting there trying to scribble and all that stuff. It's all added up for you. It goes through the playoffs. So if the Steelers make the playoffs and they go to the Super Bowl, we'll be picking that too. So make sure you guys sign up because, again, doesn't cost you a thing and can get you $250 of Steelers Almighty merch. if you are the winner. And there is only one winner. No participation trophies here at Steelers Almighty, people. No tiebreakers, no participation. Winner take all. So appreciate you guys, man. Let's move forward. So the Steelers, now we're going to get into the rumor mill. We usually don't do a ton of rumors on our podcast, but I wanted to get into it. Is that Scary Terry McLaurin possibly, rumor is, and it's been multiple places, that the Commanders threw out a wild trade. Is that Terry McLaurin for Pat Freiermuth and a second-round pick. And at first thought, it's like, yeah, you should probably do it. It's like, that's the rumor trade. Steelers need a number 2. You should do that. That's going to upgrade the wide receiver room tremendously. You got Jonnu Smith, a non-blocking pass receiving tight end. And if we're being honest, he's probably a little better at pass catching than Pat Freiermuth. Not that Muth is bad, but Jonnu's a little better. That's okay. All right. And then you give up a second round pick. Now, the problem that I see is like, look, we got DK Metcalf and we just gave up a second. We didn't have to give up a football player too. And not to mention a starting football player. That's where it gets a little dicey. The second round pick, I'm not so afraid of. I'm really not. And I know Terry McLaurin is going to be 30 when the season starts or in September, something like that. I'm not even worried about that. Because he mentions it all the time. He's like, look, yeah, I'm a little older. He was in the same draft class as DK Metcalf. He's 2.5 years older than him. He said, but he didn't play a lot of football early in his career, like in college. Like, he didn't play until his junior year. So he doesn't have the miles that other people have. But I know this, if Terry McLaurin is on the Pittsburgh Steelers, he upgrades the room. Is he better than DK Metcalf? I don't know. But I don't know that there's a lot of separation between the two. I can tell you that. The guy's got great hands, run good routes, can get deep, tough catches. He upgrades the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is that worth a second-round pick? First of all, just stopping there, yes. Second thing is adding Muth, I don't know. I think the Steelers would have to ask for something back, like maybe a 4th or a 5th round pick. If they ask for that and the Commanders say yes, I think it's a no-brainer. You have to make the move. And I know people are going to say, well, but we're going to be losing out on Muth. Hey, man, Muth is not a great blocker. We all know that. Terry McLaurin is leaps and bounds better as a wide receiver than Muth could ever be. And that's not a knock at Muth. That's just how good Scary Terry is. And he upgrades the room. Now, what nobody is talking about, and I think it's important that people do talk about this, does Terry McLaurin want to be a Steeler? Because you make this trade, you're not making this trade unless McLaurin, kind of like Metcalf, unless he agrees to a contract. There is a zero possibility that you are making this trade unless he agrees to a new contract. Because you're not giving up a second-round pick and Pat Freiermuth for a 1-year rental. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And it shouldn't happen. And paying 2 wide receivers $30 million plus, I know people are going to think that's nuts. But do we want to spend money on offense or do we not? Like, what do you want to do, people? Because that's what everybody says. You got to spend more money on offense. The Steelers have the money. They can figure it out. So what do you want to do? Do you want to spend the money or do you not? We're not paying a quarterback. We're not paying a left or right tackle or a center. Isaac makes the most money on the team. It's like $8 million or the most money on the offensive side of the football. Or take that back, offensive lineman. It's like $8 million. So do you want to pay? Because they'll have the room. There's no question they'll have the room. It's just a matter of, do you want to do it? So, yes. Muth in just a second? No. Get a 4th or a 5th round pick back? Yes. Yes, you need to make that move. Look, that's been the criticism of Omar Khan. since he's gotten the job, you haven't been able to put together a good wide receiver room. The only one you did, 2023. You had George Pickens and Deontay Johnson. And then you traded Deontay Johnson because he was a locker room malcontent, didn't give effort, got into fist fights with guys on the team. You can't have that. Okay, but you didn't replace it. Or you thought you replaced it by drafting Roman Wilson. He didn't play a snap last year. Just couldn't get on the field. Okay. Well, then you go and trade for DK Metcalf. But then you get rid of George Pickens. Same issues. Malcontent. Terrible attitude. Horrible effort. I get it. The problem is George Pickens, now he's a talented guy. Where Deontay was talented, Pickens is a top 10 talent. And you got rid of it. Now, third round pick, totally understand. Bottom line is you hurt your wide receiver room. At what point do you say that Terry McLaurin, you're not going to have any of those issues? Ton of effort. Good locker room guy. Good off the field. Good, just you have none of those issues. But you do have a guy that goes out there and produces like a number one wide receiver. He had 13 touchdowns last year, people. Come on. So for me, if you can get the right, hell, I might even say, just give us a 6th round pick back. That's how jaded I am, though, when it comes to Steelers offense. That's how jaded. I'll have to get something back. Probably going to be a hard on a 5th round pick. I'll probably be pretty bullish on that. But yes, it makes sense. Now, again, McLaurin's got to want to be a Steeler. Again, this has to be something real. It can't just be a rumor. But if this rumor is true and Omar Khan said no, and again, if they offer, hell, even if they didn't offer anything back, at what point do you say, you know what, let's for the next 3 years, let's get our wide receiver room as good as we can possibly get it? Maybe that's the thing. I don't know. But you think of DK Metcalf, McLaurin, Calvin Austin, and then Roman Wilson? That kind of changes what the wide receiver room is at that point. And again, it's not about money. It can't be about money because the Steelers have it because they're not paying anybody, any offensive guys. So yes, they'll have the money. They will 100% have it. Got to figure it out. Again, we don't dive too much into rumors on the podcast, but I thought this one was important because I've heard it from a couple different places. And again, it could be totally false. I don't think it is. But if it is, okay, great. Still something good to talk about. And if not, it is a rumor. Omar, call them. Call the Commanders, man. Call them and ask, hey, I know this was a rumor, but would you do it? Because if you would do it, we'll take it. Here you go. It's just me talking, though, people. Maybe I'm just being, I don't know, overly confident, overly jaded because I'm so sick of the Steelers offense and what it has been the last couple of years, basically the last 5, but it is what it is. We need them. I'd love to have them. I like the trade. I do. Let's go to the poll question, people. Poll 3. What is the biggest concern regarding acquiring Terry McLaurin? A, contract and future financial implications. That's legitimate. B, disrupting the current team chemistry. Wouldn't worry about that. C, potentially undervaluation of Freiermuth and the draft pick. I don't know. And D, McLaurin fit within the system. Whoops. McLaurin fit within our offensive scheme. Well, that's interesting. All good answers. But I'll be real interested what you guys have to say with this one, people. I'll be real interested. Make sure you put a 3 in front of your answer so we know which poll question that you are answering. Moving on. 5 defense or bust? Yeah. Look, I've made it known that the Steelers Almighty channel, and we are not accepting anything less than a top 5 defense from the highest paid defense in the National Football League. We're not going to accept number 6. We're not going to accept number 7. And I don't care if it's by 0.02 of a percentage point. We're not accepting it. Top 5 or better. That's it. I don't want to hear the excuses. I don't want to hear about if, ands, or buts. We are paying 170, depending on what report you see. I've seen 178. I've seen 176. Let's just call it, and we'll say 176. We'll be on the conservative side. We're paying that, and we are far and away the highest paid defense in the league, people. Far and away the highest paid defense in the league. Second highest paid defense is the Giants at 152. And the Colts and the Bears are tied for third at 144. Look, it's that big of a difference. Now, look, I understand why the Steelers are doing this because, again, they're in a rebuild mode, all right? And they've decided that they're going to rebuild in the trenches. And they started on the offensive line. Some start on the D-line. We started on the offensive line. 4 of the 5 starters are second or third year contracts. You can't pay those guys a bunch of money, okay? Because eventually, if any of those guys are good, especially tackles, you're going to be paying those guys a lot. But right now, they're on rookie deals. So you're not paying them. And I mean, you're not going to just get rid of a rookie deal just so you can say you're paying somebody. That's not how you do it. So they don't have linemen to pay just yet. Okay, great. You start looking at the defensive side of the ball. They went young this year. They had to get younger, stronger, bigger, more athletic. They did that. But you're not really paying anybody on the offense except for one guy. You're paying DK Metcalf, and everybody else, it's not so much. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is what? 13, can be up to $19 million. He's not making a ton. We already talked about Isaac. I mean, there's just Pat Freiermuth at 12. So it's not, they're not paying anybody a crazy amount of money. And that's where the difference is. So, but then you look at the league and what the league has done. And the league, the highest paid offenses, you want to flip and say, okay, well, the Steelers are this. And you look at those teams and you're like, well, other than the Steelers, who made the playoffs? The Giants sure didn't. They stink. The Colts didn't. And the Bears stunk. Okay. Those are the highest paid defenses in the league. Then you flip it to offense. Who are the highest paid offenses in the league? The Chiefs, the Falcons, the Bengals, Rams, Lions. I mean, there you go. So it's and I understand a lot of that is quarterback, especially with the Falcons, because they're paying our man Kirk Cousins, and they drafted a guy. So they're paying 2, but okay, fine. And so those teams are good. The teams that are paying defenses aren't. But the Steelers just aren't in a position yet to do that. Like they're not paying a quarterback $50 million. You know, they're not paying a running back 12. They're not even paying a second wide receiver $8 million. You know, we're not doing those things yet. So, and while the teams that I just mentioned aren't in the top 5 in the league as far as minus the Lions, as far as the best offenses, those are some of the best teams, you know, and just, I don't know. That's the difference, man. That is the difference. And the league is starting to shift to pay offense because it's an offensive league. My best example is the Eagles. And I like to bring the Eagles up as a perfect example. The Eagles have decided, and it's a good thing, is that, you know what? We're going to spend a ton of money on offense. We're paying a quarterback, 2 wide receivers, running back, 4 of the 5 offensive linemen. We're paying all of that. On defense, we'll pay a couple of guys, but for the most part, we're going to churn and burn. We are going to use draft picks. We're going to get draft capital. We're going to draft well. But when their rookie deals are up, we're going to ship those guys out, and we're going to draft new guys. That's what the Eagles have decided to do. Now, the difference is that they've hit on a couple of their defensive players, man. the Jalen Carters of the world, even Jordan Davises of the world. They've hit Quinyon Mitchells of the world. They've hit on these draft picks. Well, the Steelers got to do that. But the Eagles went young on defense, and it's paying off. The Steelers have gone old on defense, but it's not paying off on the offensive side of the ball. That's got to change. But that's the difference between the two. And the Eagles are going to keep doing that. And again, they'll keep Jalen Carter. They're not letting him get away, but they let defensive ends get away. They've done that. And what do? They just keep drafting more. And they keep drafting more. And they've done the same thing in the secondary. They let guys go. They keep drafting more. And they've decided that the Chiefs have kind of done the same thing. Is that, yes, we're going to get the secondary. We're just going to keep shuffling guys in. Now, if there's a guy, that we got to have, they'll keep him, but they're not keeping 5 guys and paying 5 guys $15+ million on defense. The Eagles aren't going to do that. The Chiefs aren't going to do that. These teams, they've decided it's an offensive league. We're going offense. The Steelers just aren't in position to do that yet. But you got to pay somebody. And that's why they do it. Having said all of that, that's a long-winded, long way around of me saying, I don't give a damn. If we're paying these guys this type of money, I need this type of result. I need a top 5 defense. Big D, you just gave me a whole bunch of fluff on why other teams are doing a bunch of other stuff. All that's fine. I don't care, and you're exactly right, because I don't care. I need a top 5 defense, and I'm not settling for anything other than that. Period. End of story. And not to mention, screw how much somebody's being paid. The players that the Steelers actually have on their defense, take the dollar amount out. Shouldn't it be a top 5 defense? I mean, if you're just looking at the players, shouldn't it be that? TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, Derek Harmon, Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, Joey Porter Jr. I mean, come on. Shouldn't that be a top 5 defense? Not to mention the depth that we have in the secondary. I didn't even mention Deshaun Elliott. Come on. That's got to be one. Now you throw the money into it. It better be. It better be. Scheme be damned, people. I don't care. We can hate Mike Tomlin's scheme all we want. Top 5 defense. Period. End of story. Don't want to hear any excuses. Not settling for anything less. Nothing less. Let's get to the poll, people. Let's get to the daggone poll. You done pissed me off. What impact do you believe DK Metcalf will have on the Steelers' offense this season? Game changer. Significantly improve the passing game. B, solid contributor and add value, but won't be the leading receiver. C, minimal impact, transition, may take time, and other players will shine. Or D, doubtful. I'm skeptical about his performance based on past issues. Make sure you put a 4 in front of your answer so we know exactly what poll question you're answering. Look, I'm bullish on this top 5 defense thing for a reason. If the Steelers are going to get to where they want to go, the offense is going to struggle probably a little bit early. It'll catch up. It'll get better as the season goes on. But the defense has to, just like early, it has to keep us in games. But what the offense does have to do, it has to play complementary football. I'm not saying you got to go out there and score 30 points a week. I'm not saying that. But if you do, or if you score 27, 28, then the defense, we should win or be right in every single game. But the offense can't have 4 out of 5 first 5 drives going 3 and out. Can't have that. There was too much of that. It's been too much of that over the last 3 years. Too many 3 and outs. Starting the game, not being able to move the football. How many times at halftime did we look up? The Steelers got like 87 yards in total offense at the half. I'm like, that can't happen. Defense is wearing down. And that's what happened last year. They just got worn down. Can't happen this year. Complementary football is big, and you have to do your part offense. Yes, the defense needs to be top 5, but they need help, and you got to help them. Period. End of story. And if you do, the Steelers are going to be okay. I'm not saying they're going undefeated, but they're going to be okay. So the optimism and all that stuff, I'm always overly optimistic until I see something that tells me not to be. And that means real football games. When I see it and we can't do it, I'll be the first person to say so. But if I don't see it and I see good stuff, I'm going to continue on that optimism train because that's just who I am, man. I tell it like it is down the line until I'm proven wrong. Period. End of story. That hopefully anything that I say that's been bad, for instance, about Broderick, hopefully he proves me wrong. Go out there and be great, young man. You got the tools. Now it's time to get the attitude to go with it. Go be great. So appreciate you guys, man. Thank you as always for showing up and showing out. Remember, everybody, to like, follow, subscribe, continues to get in those comments section, and always hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Until next time, aloha.